let's say, can you flip a commercial property is a question I always get from a lot of people. You can, and you have to do it very carefully, but when you flip property in commercial, it's more about timing, right? The timing is more, it's more important than the actual property itself. So, give you an example of timing. 5 or 6 years ago, everybody's picking up property a lot cheaper. So if you were buying apartment buildings, you could pick them up for about $30,000 a unit. Doesn't matter how good you were, the deals were there. So you didn't have to go looking around trying to do all this funny stuff. 30,000 a unit, 40,000 was kind of the norm. You cannot do that now. Probably around 75,000, 85,000. So just in you wanting to make that return for an investor, you'll have a lifelong investor, right? Because if they've made money with you once, their assumption is you're going to take care of them, and you will take care of them, and you keep going and keep going. Now, the reason I say it's more about timing is because even when the market is low and you're going to go in there and you're going to renovate everything, it's very difficult to drive the value all the way up, because there's one thing we have to increase, and that's the net operating income. The only way to raise the net operating income is by raising rents. So if you have a retail building, for example, and you have I don't know, a restaurant, a barber shop, an ice cream shop, the only way that building's going up in value is if you're raising the rents. Appreciation matters so much, but if those rents stay the same the entire time, well, the building is going down, right? Because the property gets older, it's got to need new stuff, it's more of a headache for the next guy. So if you have maybe 3 tenants, they've been there for 5+ years, and then you have a new tenant come along, that's your chance to increase the value. Having that tenant renew the new lease, get more money on the books, that's what's going to drive your NOI up, and that's what's going to do this formula for you. Now, okay, so the property, in this case, if this was a 6% return, it would be 1.6 million. So just that 2% raised the value of the building close to what, $400,000. That's a huge, huge jump. So how are you able to attract buyers who are willing to invest less, more money for the same return, or for less return? It's very difficult. So
But it's safer.
It's safer. You're hoping it's safer. Now, it's only safer depending on the investment, right? If it's a warehouse, and let's say Amazon's in there for 30 years, it's a lot less chance they're going to leave anytime soon, right? Everyone knows Amazon's going to be there. Probably not going anywhere. So you're going to be getting a less return on your money, but it's going to be safer, it's going to be nice, it's going to be excellent. So now if we have a 10% return on this, now the building's down to $1 million. So the little cap rate that we're moving around just changes the building so much, right? Nothing in the building has changed. You're just finding a person who's going to accept less money on their investment, less of a return. So if you have the same 100 grand, 200 grand, whatever it is, when somebody tells you, oh, I'm looking for a 10 cap, those are my favorite, I'm looking for a 10 cap property, or looking for, X amount return. Well, they care about their investment, right? So if you're buying a property, it's $1 million, and you have to put 10% down. So you have your 100 grand in this thing, or your 100K. So if they tell you they want a 10% return on the building, that's 100 grand, so they're doubling their money. I don't think that's what they're telling you. I think they're telling you they want a 10% return on what they put in, right? So easier way to do that, this is funny how many people are really missing this. So if they want a 10% return on their $100,000, what is that? $10,000. So I think a lot of times we're missing a lot of opportunity because we're thinking they want to double their investment. It's not realistic to get a 10% return right now in today's market, but it is to get a 6% or 8% or whatever. So on your $1 million, if you were to get 6%, you're looking at 60 grand, right? I'm gonna write it up here so everybody can see it. So if you were to get your 60 grand on the building, NOI, and you've only put in, now in this example, I'm just using 10% as a down payment just because I already wrote it up here, I don't wanna erase it. But if you're putting in 100 grand and you're getting this back, your return's looking really nice, isn't it? So if you can do all of this for your buyer ahead of time and just kind of show them the value of that, it's very, very easy to make a deal work. Now, what if you had to put 20%? More likely scenario would probably be, let's say 30%. So let's say you had to put $300,000 down and you made $60,000 on this deal. Is that a good return? 5% pretty good in today's marketplace? I know we wanted 8, but let's say you're getting 5% here. So you're getting 5% on the money you've shelled out. Now, the building is bringing in more, but you don't get to keep all of it because you have mortgage expenses, you have all this other stuff going there. But you make money in a couple different ways, right? You're making money from your cash flow, your appreciation because you're raising up the rents, you're moving them down. You're reducing expenses, which raises your money also. You have depreciation also. Not a tax attorney, but you can definitely dwindle that down a little bit. So you have a lot of advantages. You have a lot of ways to make a deal happen in today's market. You have 3 or 4 ways you can show them. There is maybe reduce the management costs. There's other ways to get there, to get to that place. And that's the biggest thing that I know we're losing. I've talked about this before. Even if you're putting $300,000 down and your debt coverage ratio is not 1.25, your deal still won't go through. So there's a lot of barriers. When people think of commercial, it just takes a long time to make things happen. So there's a lot of barriers that can still be there in order to get your financing. They're not interested in your personal credit, in your score. They're more interested in the property. Does it produce? What is it bringing out? They're looking at all these factors. So, and that's the biggest takeaway. Your financing has to make sense, and your down payment has to make sense for the investor. So he's getting his return on his money.